It's bad. Anime.
I thought you were just gonna go. Yes, I am John. This is Bad Anime, the show where we just figure out if
this anime bad? All right, good intro, great job.
Were you using that take? Perfect.
Oh, we're off to the races. I can't wait to talk about this one. Honestly, what show are we talking about today?
Well, forgive me because the Japanese title totally escapes me, but the English title is My Dress Up Darling. This is a suggestion of mine because in one of the rare occurrences I browsed through TikTok for a little bit, I saw the image of our female protagonist here just pop up a lot. And people saying, oh, like a lot of jokes saying like, oh my god, you're watching this trash while their phone background is the girl. So
that's incredible.
So naturally I figured, okay, the anime community has been taken by a rom-com recently, which isn't, it's not uncommon. So
yeah,
I figured, as of today, it's only up to episode 4. So I figured, you know what? Let's bring back the 3-episode rule and just see if we like this one. And
this is gonna be exciting. I think as for 3-episode rules go, when you told me that you had an idea for a 3-episode rule, I was like, oh, this got to be good. And it was even better when I realized the show is called My Dress Up Darling. It delivered. It surely delivered on all 3 of those words: my, dress up, and darling. So okay.
Okay. Oh, you look a little stilted. It's funny because we recorded a fair amount of episodes today, and I might have enjoyed alcohol, and it was funny. I was making fun of Mr. Weigel over here for having less than me, but with that pause, you would assume you're the wasted one trying to cover your butt, which is funny because that's going to be me in a couple minutes. But anyway, please keep going. I really want to see where this train.
You would assume because 2 cans of rosé shouldn't be able to do much to me, but I guess they've gotten to me throughout the 6 hours between that I've had one to the other.
To be fair, typically wine does do things to you that it doesn't do to other people.
You're right. It does make me feel a little slothish eventually over the course of the day. Exactly.
Meanwhile, I'm just here pounding chick ultras because I want to be a bro, but I'm also a girly man, so I'm just gonna pound chick ultras.
Is the name of people that drink Michelob Ultras chickies?
Well, I think it'd be Chicky Boys, but but I'm not sure.
Chicky Boys.
I don't know.
So
we'll figure.
a chicky boy, chicky boy you are.
Yeah, come on, baby. Sorry, I was gonna say Conga by a fucking what's her name? Come on, baby.
Gloria Estefan.
Yeah.
Come on, be my chicky boy.
Yeah, be my chicky boy.
You know who else is a chicky boy? Gojo-kun.
Okay, all right. We're gonna start right off with our boy
very
Gojo.
Chicky boy.
And why is that?
I gotta back up for just a brief second and tell you how I never once thought in my entire life that I would ever watch a sewing anime. Nor did I ever think that could be something that would exist. But this anime does
exist. That just shows how little you've seen. Where if you heard sewing anime and you didn't immediately think, oh, how many of them are there?
Are there more?
Not that I'm aware of, but there might be.
Oh God. The thing is with this one, it's at least to me, it's very distinct because even before we get into like the plot or the characters or anything, it at the core of it, these 3 episodes are, and the show itself is about cosplaying and this guy who is good at sewing and this girl who really, really, really wants to cosplay, but she really wants to cosplay a video game / porn.
Okay. Sorry, just the inflection you had there and the face that matched it. Oh boy, I have some explaining to do for you. Oh, I had a feeling
an explanation would be nice.
Well, I had a feeling this would come up. Again, I knew nothing of the plot of the show going into this. All I knew was all I saw was Marin's face, and knew that some people called it trash but loved it, which is what they do. Which is what the anime community typically does with rom-coms because they don't like to admit that they actually like them. They like to call it trash as a like ironic shield to hide their genuine enjoyment because they're Marys and don't want to admit when they like something. Marin is into eroges, as they're called in Japan, or eroge is a
Mm,
more accurate pronunciation. Not totally accurate
right.
because I'm rusty. But porn video games are just a very big genre of video games over there.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, eroge is
Hmm.
like erotic video game is what it basically is.
Oh.
Yeah, it's an erotic game,
Oh,
and
wow.
you know, they just sell the porn video games over there. Excuse me, sell very well,
Oh,
and
wow.
they do have a wide user base, from what I remember. And one of our main characters, anime, really happens to love one girl in not even a specific eroge. It's the sequel to an eroge, and that does come up
Yes.
in the show, which I love the fact that they had to address it.
Isn't it called like Slippery Girls or something? Is what
That's
it's
what it
titled?
said. That's what it said in the subtitle. I don't remember what the
Yes.
Japanese title was, but yes,
Yes,
slippery
it's
girls.
Slippery Girls 2, specifically Slippery Girls 2. And then there's
But
an
the joke
even
was
longer
that
title
well,
associated with it.
that's the joke now because anime titles, light novel titles, anime titles, video game titles, they're now a basic. They went from being a word to a couple words to a full sentence, and now they're run on
Yeah.
sentences.
Yeah.
It's bad.
Yep.
But
It, it,
so
it
this
was
was yeah,
yeah.
go ahead.
And it was really funny for that because I definitely picked up on a lot of the humor that was going on. Um, but let's start with episode 1. Let's get into it because we got our main guy Gojo, or they
Gojo.
call him Gojo Kun,
Yes.
Wakana Gojo, and he is the
Wakana forever.
grandson Wakana Wakana forever. It's also
Anyway.
the name of my walk, Wakanda forever.
Yep.
I love that walk. It's
Sorry.
very nice. But anyways, episode 1. Let's talk about this, right? Our main guy, Gojo,
Is just a loser, and I love it because and
You're
but-
not wrong. You're not
well, the
wrong.
thing is, the show, it's not even, the show doesn't really present him as such. The show presents him presenting himself as such.
Yes.
The show is not trying to say this guy's a loser. The show is showing us him, and all he's doing is like, I'm such a loser. All I do is
Yeah.
play with dolls because my family, they make Hina dolls, which is traditional Japanese dolls, and
Right.
the kid just likes dolls and likes to make clothes for dolls.
Yeah.
That became his hobby, and
He's just very passionate about making clothes for these dolls, and it seems to be the only thing that really makes him happy, generally, which is intriguing because he has this passion. And I think the first scene in the first episode is him as a child playing with these dolls,
yeah,
and somebody looking like a cousin or something is like, "You're playing with dolls? You're a boy, and that's for girls. Ew." And he just goes, "Wow, I guess I'm just a fucking loser."
because subtlety is a thing here, and it's a great storytelling device. But no, that's what it is, and I just love it that they're so out front with how this guy views himself because of these
Hmm.
experiences. And
Yeah.
there's a great scene I love where two scenes back to back because,
Hmm.
like you said, the kid lives with his grandfather. We're not too. It's quickly implied the parents are dead because there's a scene of him praying next to a traditional
Right.
more traditional Japanese family mantle with the pictures of the family
Hmm.
members. So we're led to assume his parents are dead. Sad. So he lives with his grandfather, and his grandpa just goes off the cuff. He just goes, "By the way, do you have any friends yet? You're like in high school.
Yeah.
You're like in high school. Do you have friends?" And the kid freaks out, like, "Yeah, they're just busy all the time. That's why you never see them around. It happens. I'm just a popular guy too. I got my own things going on. It's whatever, man." And so afterwards, our boy Gojo is sweating. And then there's the very typical. Next is a very typical anime scene where he's walking, and then some dude tackles him like, "Hey, buddy."
Yeah.
The great subversive bit here is the Gojo looks at the guy and is freaking out. And the guy's like, "Oh shit, sorry, dude, you're not my friend," and walks away. And then
Which is so funny that the scene after he's like, "Yeah, Grandpa, I totally have friends." And then he thinks to himself, "Wow, that was close. My grandpa almost found out that I'm a goddamn loser." And the next scene basically is some guy like, "Hey,
Yes,
what's
yes.
up, man? Oh, sorry. I thought you were my friend, but that could never happen because we're not friends. You don't have any friends." And he
Well, then
and
there's,
he's
no,
like,
if that
"That's right."
if it was that dramatic, it'd be hitting the nail on the head too much. No, this kid is also freaking out. He's like, "Oh shit, my bad, dude. I'm so sorry," and they're walking away.
Yeah.
So
And that's why it was so funny.
it just proves that everyone in his school no one even dislikes him. He's just a fly on the wall. Everyone is pure
Yeah.
apathy for this kid's existence. Um, and
It's
we
pretty funny that way because like you would think like tropes be flying around. You would think that somebody is like bullying him or he's, like no, he's just kind of there. And it's so funny. His own mental processes behind that is what I found deeply hilarious about it is that he's so self-aware in that he's like, oh, maybe he's like, oh, everybody's talking about things that they like. Maybe I should jump in a conversation. Then he's like, no, I'd probably just make the whole situation very awkward anyway. So
yeah,
I don't know. And I'm like,
it,
wow, incredibly self-aware, but like very saddeningly so.
well, no, it's super duper endearing. Where this kid is just so hyper aware of his interests, and he knows he just doesn't want to. His it seems his primary goal is to not cause a burden to anybody, and
Yeah.
and then we get a nice little I guess a little dichotomy here when we meet our female protagonist, Marin.
Hmm.
She is well, simply put, she's like a few different tropes smashed together in an interesting combination. So I was all for it right away. I'm like, I think I know where you're going with this. They in one hand, she's the hyper otaku, the hyper dork, um, kind of smashed in with the popular girl trope. But for extra measure, they
Yes.
throw in the garu thing, which is basically a Japanese counterculture fashion. It's a lot of girls who will bleach their hair, get tan, piercings everywhere. Just
Hmm.
girls who are very actively trying to look the opposite of typical Japanese beauty norms. You know,
Right. Right.
I didn't think it was a real thing until I spent a couple months in Japan and I saw them. Like, wow. Anyway, so
Wow.
Mani here is like a kind of a beautiful mashup of tropes. It's just, I guess, more is more in that scenario.
Yeah, yeah, she really is, and I like the dichotomy of like, okay, the super popular, like everybody knows her, she's like the like big person at the school, everybody likes her,
Well,
and
but
but
she
she's
not even
also a
really
huge
that.
dork.
Well, it feels like because I mean, we had a few of the in our friend group at school. We had a few kids. I mean, you and I were included in this bunch. We were just those dorks who got along with everybody, and everyone knew
Yeah,
them.
uh-huh.
They never try to present Marion as like the big girl on campus. They just present her as like, oh, she just has a ton of friends and she's so out front with who she is. Everyone is drawn to her because of that. That's
Yeah.
they're not trying to play.
Yeah. There are
They're
some scenes where some like random girls in the hallway are like, "Oh, that's Marion, right?" And they're like, "Yeah, she's really attractive and stuff, and everybody likes her." So there is like a little bit of like people being like, "Oh, popular."
Yeah, it's a little bit of that too, but it's not like over the head with it because I've seen
No.
shows where it's
No, it's not.
way. There's actually a show last season that had a lot more of that, where it was the total dichotomy of the super loser and the super popular girl.
Mhm.
That's a common enough trope as it is, but it's a little softer than that. Is what I'm trying to get at. So like,
Mhm.
but also the show acknowledges she's a dork because she wears a lot. A lot of girls in this trope usually say the popular girl who is a dork. They try to hide it. She does not at all, which I love.
Yeah.
Like Martine has like the anime stuff on her bag, like the little plushies. At one point, a
Yep.
guy tries to hit on her. It's like, "Oh, what's this dorky stuff on your bag?" Trying to start a conversation, and she looks at him, and it's almost a direct translation where she just says, "Die." We're like,
Yeah.
"You're lame. Go die." I forget exactly what you said.
Yeah, it was something like that. And that's really fun to me too, because I think this may be one of the first animes that I've experienced where they talk about anime in the anime when they're like, oh, like it just like boggled my mind when the guy was like, yeah, is that from anime? Anime is so lame. I'm like, bro, you're in an anime. You're living it, bro. You're in it, man.
That's just so funny to hear you say that. It's like, yeah, it's the first time I've heard that, like, that fourth wall element in anime, or just like any anime that mentions anime. I'm like, oh shit.
Maybe
Oh,
maybe just like so heavily because like I maybe before it's like, oh, what are you reading? Like, oh, I'm reading this light novel. By the way, I have three girlfriends. Things like that. But now this one is more like, oh, like it's an actual part of the show, and it's like, okay, everything's based around this like video game
yeah,
essentially.
yeah, no, I get what you're saying still, but the fact you haven't seen anything else other than this that has this element is still fucking hysterical because
I have not.
you were the one who wanted to start an anime podcast. Anyway,
This is part of the reason to
exactly.
learn.
I
To
know.
learn.
I'm just so happy. It's just so many things. It's my fault for taking so much for granted. That's on me. That's on me. And
You know
anywho,
how much I appreciate you.
oh, I love you too, bud. But anyway, let's get back to the dressing ups and the darlings.
Oh yes, that's right. Okay, right. So I mean, this first episode, I guess, culminates when our two characters, well, they had a brief meeting in the middle of the episode where
Yes, because well, we
she,
we do get a little bit of
yeah,
the bullying aspect. Not really bullying, but a typical in a Japanese classroom where like a couple kids would be on cleanup duty, where they
right,
sweep, move shit around, stack the chairs on the desk, clean, very basic cleaning stuff. Apparently, this kid was always on the committee, and everyone else just kept bailing. It's like, yeah, sorry, dude, we gotta run. We're it's our bad. You got this though, and they're just totally taking advantage of the kid.
oh yeah,
Marin catches on to this, and it's like, this is pretty fucked up that they're doing this to you. You should like really not. You should not be such a pansy about it. So that's their first kind of meeting, and I like it because it doesn't go in either too much in either direction. Where he's just he's just intimidated to talk to people in general. So
yeah,
of course he's like self conscious and doesn't know what to say to this girl because she's just another person. Where so I like that touch. Where you know what I mean, like he's not freaking out extra yet because it's a girl. That comes in later. But
oh yeah,
I like this first little interaction here. And earlier in the episode, the family sewing machine the family sewing machine breaks
yeah,
at
right.
at the at the doll shop. So our boy Gojo's a little upset where it's like, oh, I gotta keep working. So he goes to like this home ec room kind of thing where they have sewing machines at the school. Apparently the home ec club just doesn't exist anymore. So it's just him using like an older sewing machine, but not nearly as old as the one that's at his shop. So he's like, "This is
Yes.
fucking amazing."
Yeah, it's
It
so funny how he just like starts sewing on it and he's like, "Wow, it actually works like really well and I haven't cut myself at all."
it's
And
it's
it's
like
like clearly like a very like whatever kind of sewing machine, but compared to the one that he was using that his grandpa told him like, "Oh yeah, it's been in the family for a very long time." He's having a ball.
well, it's just so funny for me because I can relate when I went from a 1999 car to a 2017. This is like only like 2 years
Oh
ago,
yeah.
and I'm just like, "Wow, these new cars are amazing!" And it's the most basic features cars had in the past decade and a half. But anyway, so our boy Gojo's and he has this one doll he's carrying around with him all the time because we learn he's not really good at making faces for the dolls, the Hina dolls, but he excels at making clothes. Like is
Right.
in like kind of like a he just has a great hobby that he enjoys doing. That's all it is. So he's
Mhm.
making the clothes for the dolls, and of course, Marin just kind of stumbles into the room, and they see each other, and Gojo has no idea what to do. He starts panicking, and moments in this comedy anime get me where it's just these natural situations where he's just sitting there going, "I have no idea what to do with this."
Yeah, just he's like very, very still. They do a good job at this one. I feel like it's a bit akin to like a girlfriend where they just have
Mm,
like a lot of um intricate like new ways to show fear, and it's
yep.
very funny. Like there was one animation where he's just like it legitimately turned into stone and just like standing there and like cracking like while
Well,
she's like,
that's
"Oh,
actually
it's okay, don't worry about it."
that's a super common one I have to say. So right there.
Oh well, whatever. It's new to me.
I know. I if I didn't say that, someone would be disappointed I didn't bring it up. But yeah, that's actually one of my favorite anime tropes, the stone thing. Oh, and the padding. Oh, sorry, you just reminded me more of the episode, and I'm so happy.
It's
But
just very funny.
speaking of hysterical, what I really loved was Martin of course freaks out. It's like, oh my god, you can make clothes, and he's like, maybe. And she pulls out this cosplay she's working on, because she really wants to look like this maid from an eroge. And our boy Gojo doesn't hold back, just tears her apart. Where he's like, "This is
Oh.
fucking horrible."
That was my favorite, like Project Runway Tyra Banks shit
Oh
ever.
yes, yes, yes,
He was like, and you don't even have seams. Like, wow, you can't have tried because if you tried,
yes.
this is very sad. And she's like, and he's like, oh, I'm really sorry. That's I got a bit carried
Well,
away there, huh?
it all just comes out his socially awkward nature, where his passion comes out, but he clearly doesn't know how to talk to people. So, and that was basically the end of the first episode. And by the end of the first
Yeah,
episode, I'm like, that was 23 minutes. Really? It felt like 7.
yeah. It did, and he agrees to then help her make her cosplay uniforms, and he does. He's of course very taken aback because she's like mentioning all this stuff about sex slaves and stuff, and he's just like, sex slaves, huh? And also he's like, she's got boobs, so he's very attracted to her.
Right.
So it's just like a weird, awkward scenario, like very
Well,
like
no, yeah, because and also because you said sex slaves out of nowhere, but like what it is, like she's explaining so many tropes common in erogaze, and this kid's never played one, so he's like, I don't know what you're talking about, ma'am.
this was good for me.
Because in this moment, you were Gojo.
In this moment, I could live vicariously through this boy. And I felt what he was feeling. He was like, I have no idea what she's talking about, but she wants me to sew, and I can do that. So I'll just do it, whatever she wants. With the implication, I don't think he outright says it, but with the implication that he likes her. And
Okay,
stuff.
so in this scenario, if you're Gojo, does that make me Marin or Grandpa? I don't know which one.
You may be a Marine because you just have so much of a widespread knowledge on these things that I don't. That could be it. Besides, I think it's the second episode ends with a great scene with the grandpa, but I want us to get to the second episode because this episode can be summed up by one word: measurement. The entire episode
That was this
is
episode, okay.
Gojo trying to measure different parts of Marin and then just freaking out when he has to do boobs.
And just comedy ensues.
Yeah.
Well, it's just amazing that they got like so much screen time out of this, but it didn't drag.
They did.
That's the thing that really amazing about this is the comedy never fell flat or dragged for me. That's a worse sin a comedy anime can make is if it just drags or like, okay, I'm aware I'm watching a 22-minute show because it's 11 minutes in
Right.
and I want to watch something else. But
Right, I'm like checking my phone, checking my watch. I'm like,
yeah,
I don't
hoping
I'm not
hoping
really
anything
into
else will
this.
distract you, right? I know exactly what you mean. But anyway,
Yes.
I really, I mean, and it was I gotta say, just everything they did here, and I just love Maureen. She's like, yeah, I know you'd be awkward about this, but whatever. Come on, because like usually they like to have like um they like to play up like some of the naivete aspect in these kind of scenarios where like they'd have the hot girl be like naive. It's like, I don't know why you're freaking out so much. Maureen's is an actual person. She's like, okay, yeah, no, you clearly don't have a lot of friends, and I'm a kind of hot, so I understand why you're freaking out. And I love that little touch. I'm like, wow, these seem like people talking.
It is very funny how neither of them are very like oblivious to these things going
Yes.
on. They're both just like, oh yeah, like it is what it is. Or she's like, oh yeah, it is what it is, and he's like, I mean, I'll try my best to measure in between your nipples, but I really think that's a you job more than a me job.
And even she's like, okay, yeah, sailor, let me take care of that. It's it's just like little stuff like that. And what are typically more throwaway scenes in these kinds of anime, it's really nice to see here of just like, again, writers putting in the efforts. Like, how would you actually react
I'm
if
just surprised that I was sitting there for the second episode when she shows up at his house on a Saturday and she's like, I couldn't wait till Monday. Can you measure me now? And he's like, oh, okay. And she's like, I brought you cheesecake. And he's like, I mean, that's nice. That's cool. And then they hang out together and she just like gets into like a bathing suit, like a bikini and
Yep.
like undergarments. And he's like, oh, and then he has to measure her, right? And as soon as he starts measuring her, he's like tracking down the measurements and he goes through waves. He's like, no, I have to do this. I just have to do this. Just stop
Right.
being a perv for 2 seconds. And then as soon as he started measuring, I was like, they're going to do the bust, huh? That's going to happen at some point. That's going to be a problem. That's going to be a problem. It's not going to happen 15 minutes from now at the rate that we're going right now, but it's going to be a problem.
But the bust wasn't even like one of the bigger problems because at one point the feet came up and there was almost this domineering pose where she was
Very
like,
weird.
"Come on, big boy, measure my feet." It felt a little X-rated in nature. I'm like, does our boy Gojo have a thing for feet? I mean, if he does,
Yeah.
cool. I would love it if it went that direction. But he was intimidated by her feet. I'm like, wow, that's interesting to me.
Yeah, that was very interesting. I think he was very also adamant about her like not sitting on his bed.
Well, yeah, because
Maybe.
he has a futon, right? And so
Yes.
he folded up the futon, put it in the corner, so it's vertically pretty tall. And he was like, because originally when she wanted to do the feet measurements, he said, "All right, let me grab a chair." And he's like, "Nah." She's like, "Nah, I'll just sit here on the futon." He's like, "No, that's dirty." Rah! He's like really freaking out about it. I'm like, go. But I'm trying to think, was this the episode? Because there was a line in here that indicated that Gojo might have been spanking it to Marin at one point.
That's
So,
exactly what I had thought. That's exactly what I had thought at this very
so,
moment. I was
so
like, well,
basically,
boys got to have some. But boy's been like, yanking a little bit on this bed probably, which is why he's saying it's dirty. But the next episode he wakes up from a dream of her,
yes,
dressed in cosplay, being like, "Oh, would you make me your slave?" or something to that variety.
like
And
it's her reenacting scenes from the game, I assume.
yes, yeah, which he started playing, which is my favorite scene in the 3 episodes that I watched.
Okay.
So she goes home, right, and like all the measurements are done. Cool. It took all episode. Fine with me. The end
Mhm.
of the episode is he's playing through these games because he's like, oh, I guess I should play these games because like I
Well,
want to get
she
a good
basically
idea.
threw them at him, like, here, get references, and he's like, well, I'm a good, I am a professional here, so I must. And
Yeah.
it even cuts to I know the exact scene you're talking about, and I loved it too. When the grandpa walks in on him playing the games, our boy Gojo's not doing anything except taking notes, and presumably just for like stylistic things. And his grandpa's like, I know he's at that age, but notes.
He's
What's
like,
going on with my boy?
my favorite part of it was the grandpa comes in and like the whole room's pink based off the game that he's playing, right? And you can
Yep.
hear like the noises in the background of
All the
like
porn noises, yeah.
submissive like porn noises. And the grandpa comes in and he's like, "Oh, hey, what's up?" And Gojo's just like does not budge,
No,
because the
yeah.
entire episode, anytime he like like even smelled a titty, he'd be like, "That's bad. I shouldn't be doing that." But right now, he's like in pro mode. He is straight up in boss mode, just getting some research done. My guy, he's just straight in front of the screen, being a scientist, taking down these notes. And the grandpa comes in, and he does. You would think like he would just jump back and be like, "Oh, I'm not doing anything," like a normal teenager. But he's just like, "Oh yeah, okay, cool. I'll open the shop tomorrow morning. No worries." And the grandpa just closes the door, and he's like, "I mean, I know he's at that age to like this stuff, but wow. Usually people look happy when they're watching these things."
It is good comedic writing, which I had to give the show props for again because the comedic element it did not get tiresome. And
Hmm.
I'm trying to remember now. My So this is a weird experience for me where I have a very clear
Sure.
understanding of where episode 1 ended, but episode
Hmm.
2 and 3 kind of blurred together for me. When did episode 3 start?
Okay. Episode 3 began when they were back at school.
Mhm.
Um, I think episode 2 was spent entirely outside of school. And
Right.
episode 3, they're back at school on Monday. And the beginning of the episode is
Right.
Gojo's getting like a little flustered that Marin is like being so friendly to him at school because it's number one, something that he's never really experienced,
Right.
possibly. And number two, because he's like, oh, people are going to think we're dating. And I'm like hearing murmurings and I'm meeting a lot of people. And it's weird because I have a lot of social anxiety
Yeah,
and
he's getting
things like
super
that.
self-conscious, which is totally understandable. Okay,
Right.
now I remember exactly where this episode kind of goes in the direction we follow them on because it's great. At one point, he just bails from school when she's like, "Look, Gojo, let's." Okay, he ran away. He's like hiding somewhere, and under his breath, he's murmuring like, "I'm sorry, Marin," and he's like, and then she appears next to him and goes, "Well, if you're gonna say you're sorry in private, don't do this. Just like be a man about it." And he's like, "Why are you here?" It's like, we have shit to do. Come on. And
Come
she's
on, we
and
gotta go shopping.
and she loses no ground. He tries to bring up all those points, akin to, "Oh, but I'm meeting all your friends. People are gonna assume that we're dating." And her mind is like, "So, come on."
Like we got bigger things to worry about. We gotta figure out which black or violet wig that I'm going to have in my cosplay. And he's like, "You're right, you're right. We can't lose sight of what's important here."
And he
And
immediately
that's what
goes,
color wig.
"You're gonna get," and he's. I love when that wig scene came up where he's like, "No, get a longer one because she has an asymmetrical bob, so we have to trim it." And she is all ears, and part of her. I don't want to say what's going on down her in her underbits, but I think she might be falling in love. We'll see how that goes.
We'll see how
But
that goes. There is a hint of it, definitely.
well, there's definitely a little hint of it, and I of course the inner Cupid in me that likes to go "oh" at these type of anime will is is,
I,
is hoping for that, but we'll
I gotta
see.
say, Gojo, if nothing else, blew something wide open for me.
Go
that
ahead.
I needed some deep clarification on, and I think he really sold. So, on this show many times before, right? Especially considering, I think Spirit Chronicles is the latest culprit of this. But
Okay.
typically, as I've been seeing, right, sometimes in animes, I'm being
Hmm.
so general about this because I don't want anybody to make any assumptions here. But typically, in the animes that I have seen over the past 6 to 9 months, okay,
6 to
purple
9.
hair. That we'll get to that soon too. Purple hair
Ah!
seems to designate that somebody is Japanese.
Um. No.
Dark purple. Well, dark purple hair in animes that I've seen, right, is
I.
akin to black. Essentially is black, right? When somebody wants to show black hair, at least in Spirit Chronicles, I have seen purple hair when they're like, "Oh, you have very dark black hair." Now,
Um, I'm gonna give you another bonus point here. There is a show last season that did that as well. You might be on something here. This might be a relatively new thing because this is not something historical that I can
interesting.
tell. But who knows? It might just be a coincidence of the anime that come out in the past. Like these are all happened in the past couple of months where these shows
Mhm.
like had characters with like uh dark black hair, but it looks more purple.
Right. And I might be connecting three different dots on three different pieces of paper. But
You might be, but I want to see where the picture's going, so I'm not going to discourage you from doing this. I'm just going to
thank
sit
you.
in the background and just kind of observe casually. It's like, okay, what are you doing?
I
Okay,
appreciate your support to no end.
you got it.
But when they're looking at wigs, right? And she's like, "Oh, let's do the black wig." And he's like, "No, you should do the purple one because it'll stand out a little more and also the character's hair is black and that sometimes is portrayed as purple." And I was like, "Wow, bro just did some commentary on things that I did some commentary of or in my brain. Wow. Me
Are
and
are
this
you are,
guy,
are,
tight."
are you just trying to find another dude who could rip on Spirit Chronicles for you?
If you're gunning for that point, you may have hit the nail on the head with that one before even I did. I think I just need someone to bro down over my hatred of Spirit Chronicles, and he just seems to be the guy based on all this information.
Well, but
Um,
then you said the show's not bad, so I don't know where you're going
it's
at with.
but it's not bad. It's I can't get into this again. I just can't. I just
Yeah,
can't.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, we'll come back to it later.
But you see
And
what I'm? There's another thing here with like black hair and like
no,
purple
I see
hair,
what
and
you're saying.
but
I see
there's
what.
I don't have an exact thesis yet, but know that one's coming, and I'm gonna draw it up for you.
Well, there's the show. Then Comey Can't Communicate is one you should watch. It's on Netflix. It came out last season. Our main
Mm,
character has like purplish hair, and I don't remember. It could play into your thing here. So
This
go
is a
watch
good source. This is a good source.
go watch that on your on your own time, and who knows, maybe we'll feature it on the show. But anyway, um,
Anyways, yes.
there's more shopping going on. Mari is super impressed with Gojo's meticulous note taking abilities,
Hmm.
where he's like just like carving shit up and on paper and making sure all his estimations are correct. And they actually because the 3 episode rule is a common anime is common in the anime fandom now, where production staff know 3 episodes in you have to lay a hook at some point. And
Yeah.
it kind of surprised me here, where narratively speaking, they kind of set a hook here at the very end when our female protagonist goes, "Yeah, I can't wait for the event in 2 weeks. This is gonna be great. Bye, Gojo." And then Gojo starts freaking out. It's like, "I only have 2 weeks." End credits. I'm like, "There's your hook. There's the whole
There's
thing
the
of the.
hook.
There's your narrative set up for the rest of the show here. He only
Hmm.
has 2 weeks to make this thing work. He really wants to do it, and there's gonna be some fumble fucking along the way. I'm excited to see where this goes."
Yeah. I did think they got a nice hook at the end with that whole 2 weeks thing, and I like how it was very it matched up with the show very well and the humor very well in that she was just like, "Oh, by the way, yeah, there's an event in 2 weeks," and it seemed like she wasn't even going to tell him until he asked because he was like, "Oh, yeah, you mentioned this event. Do you know when it is?" She was like, "Oh yeah, that's 2 weeks from today,"
Yeah,
and she was like, "Bye," and he was like, "Oh, okay."
you hit the nail on the head here when you said consistency. It's just it feels like whoever's involved in the show has a very clear image of the type of humor, sorry, that they're trying to present, And I gotta say, I laughed a lot, but I also found both these characters fairly endearing because
Yeah.
we only really met them, Grandpa, and we briefly met Marion's friends. I think only one of them said
Right.
her name, for example, so we
Yeah.
didn't really meet them yet. I like the focus on our small core cast first, and then we spread
Me
out,
too.
and especially for rom-coms, that just works better because they're so character
Definitely.
driven. You don't want to like overload people with too many characters at once because then you run the risk of some of them not getting developed. But anyway,
Right.
um, it's just so funny to me, and I mentioned this briefly. I don't remember if we were recording or not, but the community picked this show as the one. It's like, oh my god, and they just had like a thoughts and a pit, and it got loud about it. And I'm still trying to figure out why, because
Interesting.
it's just I know why I enjoyed it, but for a community at large, especially 'cause some of the content creators I saw mentioned and stuff like that, especially on TikTok, they're way more in the action oriented crowd, particularly shonen. And I'm just like, A, how did you find this? Did you just go on
Yeah.
recent? Did you just go on recently added on Funimation and saw a couple down from Attack on Titan, saw the blonde girl and said, "Well, I got time." Were people trying to watch it when Attack on Titan crashed all the streaming services? Did people just pick an anime and
Could have
find
been.
this one? Who
Could have
knows?
been.
I mean, for me right now, I'll get into some of my thoughts real quick. The animation at times was a little wonky. If I had to give, I don't want to give the show all credit across the board, because that's just not what I do. The animation was weird at some points, and I can't tell if they're what some of their things they were doing were stylistic or were shortcuts. Because
Uh-huh.
whenever it wasn't super zoomed in on a character's face, characters just didn't have facial features at all.
That's right.
And
Yes.
there's
That's right.
plenty of anime that done that. The first one we ever talked about, Hikaruon had that for days, but that was also 1986, and
Yeah.
we're in 2022. So I can and it was just weird, like the far, like I guess you could say like I guess the wide shots or the further away, or the shots where the characters are further away from the camera, so to speak. Um, it was super choppy. But once
Mm.
the characters got in focus and their face were very close to the camera, or the frame, whatever you want to call it, I don't know how to like transfer the live action terms to the anime terms. Um, everything was super clean and super pristine on our characters' faces, and they made our female lead Marin, like, she looked good. Her hair was falling in the right places. They took a lot of time with those frames, clearly, and I
Yeah.
can't tell if like maybe they were trying to replicate. I don't know if this is based on a manga or not, because they might have been trying to replicate the feel of the manga a little better in like those
Hmm.
transitionary panels, which could get points with people who read it. I have not read it this time, so I can't say. I just have questions here. So the animation wasn't perfect. Funny enough, the opening theme was way more hype. Sorry, the opening musical theme was way more hype than it had to be, and
Oh yeah.
I'm very confused because part of that's the only portion of music here I really noticed. But then again, when it comes to music in anime like this, not noticing it's kind of a good thing because
Uh-huh.
if it just does its job, there you go.
Yeah.
If you notice it, it's either because it's great or awful. You know what I mean?
And it
So
did do its job. It was very cutesy throughout the entire thing of what I could remember. But then again, like I couldn't like recite any of like the notes for you. I couldn't recite any of the melodies for you. But I'm sure it was just like bubbly, fun, cutesy, a little like
and it did its
dramatic when it needed to
job.
be.
It did its job is the point I was getting to. It did
Exactly.
everything it needed to do, so I can't really fault the music. I just have to say the opening theme was way more hype than it had any
It
right to
was
be.
it was very excitable, and it was like
Yeah.
there were so many like funny things about the opening sequence too. Is it just
Mm,
like very quick cuts, very like fast moving, and very hype for a show about sewing.
yes.
But I don't know. It was fun though. I kind of dug the opening.
I mean, yeah, this whole. I mean, again, this is another one of those shows. We've been on a hot streak recently where we just covered a bunch of fun shows. And I guess the question with our 3 episode rule is, are we going to continue? Episode 4 is already out, so after the Royal Rumble, I'm gonna watch episode 4, and I'm gonna keep
Fun,
going. And
fun.
it continues every Sunday, so I'm like, you know what? Sorry, every Saturday. So Saturday shows. It's not that I have a bias here, but Saturday shows are usually the ones I kind of stick with the most. Saturdays and
Yeah.
Mondays because they're the best for my
Hmm.
schedule as a human.
Hmm.
So, Sundays as
Yes.
well, but Sundays I like to do a lot of things. I usually overwhelm myself with the amount of shit I'm doing, so I forget to watch anime.
Yeah.
But this show, summing up, yeah, I'm gonna keep watching this at least for a little bit to see where this goes. I'm invested enough in these characters, and with that little hook especially, it's like, okay, you got 2 weeks, bud. Make that shit work. I'm into
Yeah.
this.
I think where I stand with it is I'm inclined to say that I wouldn't continue with it, but there is something very charming about it and something very fun about it that I
Hmm.
did really like and I did take away. That it is as you have described by people that have been talking about it. It is kind of trash. It kind of is trashy in a little way, but it
Honestly,
has a
no,
couple.
here's the thing. I
It
am.
has a
I'm gonna.
couple tinges of like goodness, though. It has a couple tinges of things that are a little different than what you would expect like a trash anime to be, I feel.
I'm gonna call it all those people right now and say you're wrong. You haven't seen trash. This isn't trash. This is just a rom com. This is just a rom com, and I think a lot of the anime there's a nice little subsection of the anime crowd that's just really not used to that. Because
I see.
if you think this is trash, oh, you are mistaken. Like if this is I mean, there's a couple like cheeky kind of sexy moments in it, but it's in no way super vulgar by any means. And sometimes it's
No,
even
it
played,
hasn't been.
and sometimes it's even played up for comedy. I think there was one point where her boobs are flopping around, but it was more comedic than anything else. It wasn't meant to be sexy. And I just think people just need to experience more actual trash. So I do
Wow.
not think this is trash almost at all. It's supposed to be a fun little kind of cutesy rom com. That's all it really is. And there just because there's
Yeah.
boobs in it, does that make it trash? No, they're boobs.
Yeah, I think like I sense as I was mentioning before, I sense a little trash. I do sense a little trash, but but
You haven't
but
seen enough trash either.
maybe I just haven't seen enough trash. But it
Well,
is it is endearing though. I think that it does have some good points to it, and that it isn't just like kind of what you said. It isn't just like all just boobs flopping around like big boob time, yay, kind of thing
yeah,
yet. I don't know if it'll evolve into something like that, but at least
we
for the
don't know.
first three episodes, it has been generally. I don't know. I think it's been more funny than provocative. If
Well,
that
that's the
helps.
point. It's a rom com.
That's the balance. That's the
That's the point.
balance,
That's the point.
and it's more funny, right? Which is a good
Yes,
thing. Which
yes.
is a good thing.
Yeah, no, it's not trying to be.
So I think will I continue it? I think I will. I think I'll
Okay,
actually continue this. I'll give it a shot. I think
a
it
shot.
came to me at a good time because it comes out every Saturday.
Yep.
Attack on Titan comes out every Sunday. Attack on Titan comes out at like 4 p.m. on Sundays on the East Coast. So maybe I'll just watch the new one of this while I'm waiting for the new one to come out. Who
I was
knows?
about to say
It could really,
if this is your buffer, that's a great choice of buffer.
yeah. It's like my it's like my fluffer. It's like my fluffer episode for the big main event.
Just something to get you going.
Yeah, something to get me going, something to get me in the mood to watch some violence. There's some cutesy stuff, and I think I need some of that in my life. And I like I like a rom com, I like a movie rom com. So I have been enjoying this. I have been
There we
enjoying this
go.
anime rom com.
Give it. That's what I would say to anyone who finds this a little gem here. Like, give it a go and see how it goes. I mean, I'm not going to say it's great yet because it's only 3 episodes in, but
Yeah,
the first 3 episodes are solid enough. We have the foundation here for a good show. It all depends what they do with it.
yeah.
I don't
Like,
know.
am I interested? Yes, I think I am
Oh,
interested.
I definitely am, and this is one of the few shows that interested me in a while. So I'm excited to see where this goes. Who knows? Maybe if we think it's debatable how it concludes, we'll talk about it in the future. And if it just turns out to be
Yeah,
good, we'll probably just come back and say, it was good. That's it. Bye.
that's it. That's the end of the show. But yeah, that was way more fun, and I liked it way more than I expected.
Good
That was
stuff.
my dress up darling.
Yeah, that was my dress up darling, and we're gonna continue that and see how the trail goes. Thank you for joining us. Another 3 episode rule. There's so many freaking anime coming out every couple months, so we're gonna have to do a ton more of these at some point. So
Oh,
if you
yeah.
like this format, stick around and keep listening.
It's bad.
Wow, oh my god, what a rousing podcast of anime conversation. Am I right, my compares? Am I right, my weebdom? Anywho, yeah, you can send us a message if you want. Did you like this podcast? Did you hate this podcast? Do you want to kill me? Do you want to drench me in Calaxosaur blood and watch me drink it? That's fine. Just send us an email at badanimepod@gmail.com or DM us on our Instagram at badanimepod, all one word. You can also find us on YouTube as Bad Anime, and you could leave a comment on whatever video you want to leave a comment on. We'll read them all anyways. We don't care. I love you. Kiss, kiss.
In your ear.
Podcast Network.